Hi, welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for watching. Well, a budget deal, that is a Pennsylvania state budget deal, seems to be in place. Liquor store privatization, not anytime soon. And then, well, electric choice, what's that all about? We're going to get an update from Terry Fitzpatrick. We'll be back in a moment.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Hi, welcome back to the program. Well, it looks like a couple of big decisions have been made in Harrisburg in the last couple of weeks. We're going to get into some of the details with two of the state's leading journalists, Amy Worden from the Philadelphia Inquirer and Laura Olson from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. They both are frequent guests. Amy, let's start with you. It looks like we've got at least a framework for a state budget in place. As we tape this, the details are yet not known, but it looks like the spending is about where, and is it anything new? Go ahead.
Well, I think you were down to, well, it was initially a $500 million difference between what the governor wanted and what so the legislature appeared to want. So that was the negotiating point. Where were they going to go within that number? The governor wanted to, although revenues have improved considerably in the last 3-4 months, the governor still wanted to hold spending down, but at the same time there were a lot of serious cuts that the legislature wanted to put back. Now
it looks like, as we sort of speculate, if they're at $27.7 billion, increase of $500 million over what the governor recommended, as Amy said, that's what the legislative leaders want. It looks like the education and the county human service cuts have been, let's put it this way, mostly restored as we speak. Is that about right?
So that's a strong likelihood. In the Senate plan, which uses the exact same figure that we heard on Wednesday night, is going to be the figure for this budget framework, the almost $7 billion. In the Senate plan, using that number, they restored higher education to the current year. They restored half of the county welfare cuts. So, I mean, those are the main places that we're going to be looking once some of these details come out, as well as some funding for basic education.
Right. But I think a key to consider here is what's left out. There's a serious chunk of money, the general assistance funding, that provides a couple of $100 for 60-some thousand temporary money to 60-some thousand disabled people who are transitioning to Medicaid. And that's going to go away. And there was no appearance that the legislature was going to put that back. And that really is the bottom of the safety net for these folks.
All right, but I want to move on because, next week's program will probably get the final budget. But it looks like overall you would both agree the framework is set. It's now down to some details. It's pretty well done. Do you both agree June 30 will be met with a constitutional deadline? You both agree? Yes. All right, I'm going to start with you on the next issue. All right, privatization of the liquor stores, it looks absolutely dead, at least for now. We can speculate about the future. What happened? Oh, I know. Don't tell me they couldn't get the votes. I know that. Go ahead, tell me.
No. What we heard from House Majority Leader Mike Turzai and the governor when they walked out side by side earlier last week, they said they couldn't get it across the goal line. And so there had been the strong push in the House, mostly from Representative Turzai, to do some sort of privatization plan. This had evolved. He had one last summer that then was amended in the winter, and he came out with a new plan, which after lengthy debate recently, again was shelved when the debates were, when the votes were looking in jeopardy during that debate. So this is supposedly going to go into the fall, but we'll have to wait and see.
Let's talk about that, and then I want to get into a few of the details. Amy, you've covered these for a long time. I'll bet they're not in together, the House and the Senate, from when they take the July break, end of June break, to the end of the session, 14 days together. They've got the national conventions, and they have 2 holidays, right? Jewish holidays, and is it Veterans Day that comes up? Right. And then they take off for how long before they're on elections, and no lame duck. Come on, go ahead.
We're not talking about much time to do the remaining business of this spring and the fall at all.
Yeah. Plus, not just the liquor stores, but other things, right?
Sure.
Let me ask you this question, Aim. 1,600 wine and retail licenses. That's what he wanted to create. That is Turzai. States 1,100 beer distributors would get a crack. Then They want to put these up for auction. There are all sorts of other things having to do. Do you think this bill just got too complicated? People complained that there had a lot of parts they didn't understand, or you think it just they couldn't get the Republican votes to do it?
No, the individual who was chairman of the Liquor Control Board, 15 or so years ago when this last came up under Governor Ridge, was John Jones, now a federal judge. And he said at the time this came back last year with big flourish from the governor and the push from Representative Terzai, was that alcohol drinkers do not have a lobby. The union has a lobby, the beer distributors have a lobby, the wine, distributors have a lobby. Exactly
I've never heard that mentioned before.
Right, and that's the problem. While it's widely supported in polls, and among the general people, certainly editorial boards at our newspapers support it, but they do not have a lobby.
Okay, all right, we're going to run to a break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about this plan to give a tax break, $1.7 billion to Shell for a so-called cracker plant. I had the governor on last week. He explained what this all means. I'll try to do so again after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania Cyber Charter School, bringing educational innovation and freedom to the children of Pennsylvania. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by BetterSaferRoads.com. To voice your support for safer highways and less traffic congestion, visit BetterSaferRoads.com. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Hey, welcome back to the program. We're talking with a couple of Pennsylvania's leading journalists about a whole bunch of issues that are coming up before the legislature. One has to do with sort of a controversial tax break that the governor wants to give to Shell Oil. It's would be for a cracker plant. I'm trying to explain this. That's the natural gas. You have natural gas, turn it into ethane, and then you turn it into ethylene, and that becomes used for plastics manufacturers. You're shaking your head. I got that right? Okay.
It's a chemical plant.
It's a chemical plant. Okay. Now, it said, whose turn is it? I forget. Okay, Laura. Go explain what this deal is about and what some of the controversies are, and then Amy can weigh in.
Well, this is one of the things that the legislative leaders did make clear, and the governor made clear, is somewhere in this budget framework that we'll be seeing a vote on we don't know what the figure is, a tax incentive for Shell and other companies to locate ethane facilities within the state. And so the number we've heard before is this $1.65 billion. And so that would be spread over about 25 years. It would be similar to the size of the film tax credit that the state approves every year. It would be about $66 million a year based on how much ethane these companies purchase and then process. And so what they produce then is used by these companies that make plastics and diapers and all sorts of petrochemical-based products.
Now, this is pretty consistent with past policy. If I remember, Governor Rendell gave assistance to Harley-Davidson in York to keep jobs. They've given money to Comcast, to Boscov for Stadia. I mean, is this all? Right. You've covered a lot of these stories.
Oh, sure.
Is it the size of this that is stunned people?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Some are saying it's the largest, financial incentive package ever offered. Governor Rendell, under Governor Rendell, there were a number of cases, as you mentioned, where he was trying to keep plants already or companies already located in Pennsylvania, and he also, there were also tax credits offered to bring companies here. So that's a typical part of of doing business, and you're competing with other states as the state of Pennsylvania is.
And Governor pointed that out. The other thing is, I think we spent somewhere between $3 and $4 billion during the Rendell years, both Republicans and Democrats, on economic and community development projects, some of which, have borne fruit, some of which, But is this going to get done, Laura? I mean, as part of the budget deal we're talking about now, this looks like the framework. Sure. Go ahead.
Well, the sales pitch we've also heard on this is that this isn't just like Boscov stores or a Harley plant. This would be one pretty good-sized plant, and then all these smaller plants that would build up around it. And it's the timing on this that's key, or at least according to the sales pitch, that Shell has to make some decisions coming up about whether they're definitely going to locate in Beaver County or whether they're going to look back at maybe the Gulf Coast again.
Or go to West Virginia or Ohio. The governor said that. Now, what's interesting, Amy, is that I saw in the press conference the governor had, you had union leaders, union leaders, Democrats in the western part of the state where the jobs will be created on board with this. Am I right? This is, go ahead.
Oh, they were actually freely using the word kumbaya moment. Because
kumbaya moment. Like union leaders and the governor on the same platform,
business and labor, Democrats and Republicans, everybody was singing the same tune.
So again, I'd put you on the spot. Maybe I shouldn't do it, but I do it anyway. The deal looks like it's done, and there'll be something of a tax credit. Maybe, who knows about the final number? Right. And that will be done in conjunction with the budget. You both agree with that?
I think so.
Yeah.
All right. Before I let you go, one last thing. We've had some reports from an Inspector General's report that the Liquor Control Board commissioners have been taking some favors, golf outings, tickets to games. But, Amy, you think that's not new. That report has been around for a while, right?
Right. Well, it was issued by the Inspector General last year, and it was obtained by my colleague Angela Columbus.
Right. Give Angela credit. Go ahead. And because usually Inspector General's reports are not made public, so it was very unusual that this came to light. That basically outlines that a number of these commissioners, 3, had taken some pretty nice gifts, in perks, the way of as you said, sports events, sports tickets, and also booze. A lot of booze. One of the reports was that there's a golf match by one of the members, I won't mention his name, it's not particularly important, at a golf course called Aronimink, and 2 staffers caddied for him. I mean, that was in one of the reports. I mean, now, typically, would that be referred to the Attorney General's office, Laura, or don't we know where it stands right now?
That would be an option, I believe, if there's something that was questionable that then the Attorney General
I think there's a little bit of a mystery about why nobody took action on this report, whether it was the Ethics Commission or the Attorney General.
I guess in conclusion, I mean, I don't know just what's been reported by you folks in your papers, but after Bonusgate and all these prosecutions, you got to sort of raise your head and go, favors like this, it's not sort of de minimis. It's not like you go give a speech and, they give you a little box of chocolates, it's a de minimis value, as you put it. This is pretty, some of this looks like has substantial price tags to it, right?
Indeed. Well, and directly related to the industry that you're supposed to be regulating.
Yeah. And the other one, this is one of 2 that Angela was able to turn up. The other one was about administrative law judges, also related to the LCB, just not working and not going into the office and going and picking up their groceries.
If we didn't have you 2 coming in and talking about this. All right, Terry Fitzpatrick is coming up. What's going on with electric deregulation? Oh, more importantly, choice. What are you doing about your electric bills? Terry Fitzpatrick will help us out after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, check out ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the State System of Higher Education. 14 state-owned universities. The state system is the largest provider of higher education in Pennsylvania. And by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, working towards a healthy Pennsylvania.
Hi, welcome back to the program. Joining me is Terry Fitzpatrick. He's the president and CEO of the Energy Association of Pennsylvania. Terry's a regular guest on the program whenever we want to talk about energy. Terry, talking about energy, we've got the petrochemical plant. You just heard Amy and Laura talk about where it stands. Looks like something like it is going to pass, which meaning maybe not 1.7 billion, but it'll be, it'll be up there. Tax credit. course, given what you do, you would support this, I would think. And I noticed labor, business, boy, there's lots of folks behind us. Give us some of the reasons why you think it's a good idea.
Well, I think it would be a great thing for Pennsylvania if a plant like that were to come here, because, you know, if you hear any complaints or any angst about the economy over the last couple decades, it's over the fact that we've lost manufacturing jobs. Yeah. Yes, you have jobs in service industries, but it's hard to support a family on that. Here are some manufacturing jobs that could come to the state and have a lot of spin-off positive effects, too, to create really long-lasting jobs. So I think it's really important to get that plant here. But, you know, it's certainly legitimate to talk about what the role of government is in one of these kind of plants.
Yeah, and maybe that was, you know, the positive. On the negative side, it's how much. That's what I've heard mostly. It's, as you know, we have a long history. We helped the film industry originally with $75 million a year, and apparently that gets reduced. It's something like $60 or $65 million a year. Tax credits, by the way, for filming in our state. So it's not unprecedented. How much seems to be the issue, and I guess we won't know because of the, you know, what the long-term impact of that is until it gets done, right? Go ahead.
Well, that's right, and, you know, there won't be anything involved if the plant doesn't come here. Yeah. You know, if it goes to Ohio or West Virginia or somewhere else. So. Yeah. But I certainly think it's legitimate to talk about those numbers and, you know, to have that be an issue. But I hope it gets done, because I think it would be great for the state.
Well, it looks like a done deal. I mean, as we tape this, it looks like the governor and the legislative leaders have a frame for the budget, meaning how much the state, and then this will be involved in it. And
it's nice to see something that's bipartisan, too, by the way, that doesn't divide people so much. I think a lot of people agree this is a good thing.
Yeah. Well, as we said, kumbaya moment with union and business. The Chamber of Commerce and the unions on the same stage arguing, maybe something can't be all wrong there, right? All right, let's talk about, bring us up to date with, you know, with electric rates and the competition. Where does it, how does this stand as we head into the summer, where it looks like it's going to be a warm summer? Go ahead.
Yeah, it's certainly warm out there today.
Right.
There's, you know, of course, customers, both electricity customers, natural gas customers, can choose their supplier. You're still always going to be a customer of your utility because they transport the energy to your home and bill you, but you can choose your suppliers if you want. These programs have been in place for a number of years. We do have levels of shopping, certainly for the bigger customers. Most of them, almost all of them, frankly, buy from competitive suppliers, don't buy from the utilities. But with the smaller customers, there's still a lot of them that are with that stay with the utility, because the utility offers relatively stable rates. But there's a lot of discussions going on in the Capitol, at the PUC, and in the legislature about how can we get those shopping levels higher than they are now.
Now, let me ask you a question. When you say shopping levels, we're talking about the numbers of people who may get their bill and say, I want to shop around and see if I can get another supplier. Am I using the right word?
Correct.
To supply me with electricity, and there are options out there.
Right.
And that's where the big, I mean, how does the average person go about that? Is that what the debate, how do they find what's best? How do they understand it? This is, I mean, in all fairness, I did some research, testified about the numbers of people who were applying, you know, who looked into this. Still not as large as I think everybody would like it, right? Go ahead.
Right. Well, I think a lot of this is how can we educate people? How can we lead the horse to water, so to speak? Give people the information that they need to allow them to shop. There's also another issue, though. I mean, both electric and gas utilities are still involved in supplying to customers who don't shop. And the legislature has made clear that they want that product, that default service product, as we call it, to be relatively attractive. The utilities go out and buy it in the market. They try to do it in a way that they get the best price, but they also try to do it in a way that they offer a relatively stable price to customers that doesn't jump around a lot. Right. Now, the result of offering that as a default is some people will say, well, why bother? We're getting a pretty good product. And there's a philosophical debate over whether it ought to be that way or whether utilities ought to get out of that business and just let the competitive suppliers offer it. So I think that's something you have to stay tuned. That's ongoing.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, I'm going to ask Terry about electric prices up, down, what the price format looks like in the future. We'll be back in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Highmark Blue Shield, changing the way health plans work for business with a variety of plan options for employers and more choices for employees. Information is available at highmark.com. Have a greater hand in your company's health. And by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, the future of long-term care.
Hi, welcome back to the program with Terry Fitzpatrick. We're talking about all things energy. Electric rates up, down. I mean, actually, I guess you get a set rate now for a year or two in your contracts, right? But suppliers, I mean, does it look like energy costs up or down in the state in general? I mean, not necessarily what we pay because we have contract. Go ahead.
Well, you can get a contract. I think different suppliers offer different types of arrangements, and customers ought to be very aware of that, you know, at the time that they're talking with the supplier about going to them. But the utility price changes on a more frequent basis to reflect what's going on in the marketplace. Whether prices are going to go up and down, well, you know, if I could predict energy prices, Terry, I probably wouldn't have to work full time,
right? The stock market?
Yes, yeah, exactly. But markets go up and down. I think we've had some, although the economy's there have been a lot of tough things the last few years. Natural gas and electricity prices, at least, have been very reasonable compared to where they were if you went back 3 years ago. So that has been a piece of good news.
Where does natural gas stand in the state? I mean, I guess demand is down a bit, but not producing as much.
Well,
big industry. Go ahead.
Right, that's the way markets work, Terry. Prices have gone down a lot for natural gas. I mean, if you went back 3 years, you know, you had prices that are probably 4 or 5 times what they are now in the market. Some of that's the economy, but more of that is the development of the Marcellus. We have so many more supplies than we had. Well, the way a market works, if you have large supplies, the price goes down. When the price goes down, that starts some momentum for cutting back on production because there's not as much incentive to do it. That causes prices eventually to go back up, and then production follows. So that's the ebb and flow of marketplaces.
Yeah, we have about a minute left. One of the interesting things is whether we'll be able to take natural gas, for example, and use it for automobiles. I know that requires a huge, but it would free us from the dependence on foreign oil, and it seems like maybe a logical next step, right?
Well, there's a lot of discussion of that, and from a policy standpoint, there's some moves to try to get that in place with some things that the legislature is looking at because. Yeah, there's a lot to be said for that, but it's hard because you have to. There's a lot of infrastructure that's required. First, you have to have the automobiles that are capable of using that fuel, and then you have to have the refueling stations in place.
All right. Well, look, thanks for the update as always. We'll see you soon, and thanks for watching Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, stay well.